Did you know that Greyhounds can serve as therapy dogs for first responders? That's the pilot program underway between Greyhound Racing New South Wales and the Dallas Police Department. Stay tuned. Greyhound Nation is next. This is Greyhound Nation, episode 41, recorded December 13th, 2023. Australian Racing Greyhounds as police therapy dogs. Greyhound Nation is a podcast for Greyhound enthusiasts produced by Greyhound enthusiasts. To learn more about our show and its hosts, visit our website at greyhoundnation.dog. That's greyhoundnation.dog. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Greyhound Nation podcast. I'm Michael Burns, and now here's your host, John Parker.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here tonight to talk about a great new program right here in the USA, dealing with Australian Greyhounds. Greyhounds have had many jobs over the years, and most recently they've been trained as service dogs and therapy dogs. There's a great new pilot program with the Dallas Police Department, and we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. This is a program initiated by Greyhound Racing New South Wales, and with us is the International Rehoming Coordinator. I don't know if that's his official title. We'll get into that a little bit. Russ Feilen. Welcome, Russ.
G'day, guys. Thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
Tell us a little bit about the origins, how you got into the rehoming mission of Greyhound Racing New South Wales, and what your current duties are.
Yeah, thank you, John. Firstly, welcome everyone, and thank you very much for having us all the way down under. Just to let you know that we've got a very hot day in Sydney today. It's hitting post 100 Fahrenheit, so nice to be indoors. John, look, the essence of my involvement, I've had around about 4 or 5 years involvement now with Greyhound Racing New South Wales and Greyhounds as Pets New South Wales in a number of capacities. I came on board sort of post the initial ban, sort of at late 2017, 2018, and working with the then CEO and the then board to help galvanise the industry and certainly help, I suppose, restore not only trust but also to build on what was a wonderful foundation. Through that particular time, I had a lot of involvement with, from a rehoming perspective, with Greyhounds as Pets, which has been very enjoyable, and that's anywhere from the actual rehoming or from a marketing or media perspective. And the latest venture, which sort of brings me here on this fantastic podcast, sort of emanated around about mid-October last year. I was having a chat with our now CEO, Rob McCauley, of Greyhound Racing New South Wales and Greyhounds as Pets, and we were talking about greyhound adoption and rehoming. And I think, as we all know, not just greyhounds but pets, I think post-COVID, whilst there was a very sharp spike in terms of pet adoption during COVID, at the back end of COVID, with people going back to work and cost of living crisis and macroeconomics and various things like that. I think the rehoming generally of a lot of pets is plateaued out. When we were talking about in terms of from a greyhound perspective, we were looking at how can we different ways of doing things, finding our beautiful dogs great homes here in New South Wales. And I mentioned to Rob that I came across this fantastic article in the Irish Examiner, which I'll go on to explain a bit, and it was talking about how the Irish had a program rehoming retired racing greyhounds in North America. And in that brief chat with Rob, we sort of looked at each other and said, okay, well, let's investigate and let's see if we can build one too. So, that started sort of mid-October, and and here we are today with a really successful retired racing greyhound program in North America.
And you were there on the ground floor, so to speak, to get the international program started, right? You did a lot of the initial legwork and so forth.
Yeah, look, exactly, John. Well, as you well know, at October 15 in 2022, you and I had our first Zoom call from memory. I think it would have been a Saturday over here and a Friday night over there, and just by way of all the guests on the podcast, I heard about John Parker through the Irish Examiner. Quickly Googled him, and found an email. I sent an email thinking, I'm not sure where this is actually going. Got a response back in 45 minutes. 24 hours later, we were, we were on a call, and and that's where I suppose that's where it all emanated from. It started there. We quickly mobilized. We came over to the US in late January on an exploratory mission that coincided with our first beautiful 8 Greyhounds arriving in LA and down to Arizona. And it's been it's been going strong ever since.
Yeah, I've said that I think that Irish Examiner interview I did was about the only good thing that's ever come out of a media interview I did on greyhounds or greyhound racing or greyhound adoption. They never get it right, but it got us connected, and we'll count that as a positive for media interviews. One of the few. Very, very good. So you've been over several times. You've done the circuit, so to speak. Met all manner of greyhound adoption folks, and you and your team got the program up and running, and it's off to the races, so to speak, now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right, John. We were very fortunate, via you in particular to start. We were introduced to the lovely John McQuade and his beautiful wife Susie at GALT. We caught up with them down in Dallas in late January. Our friends at GPA National and TJ and Steve very kindly introduced us to a lot of the chapters and the particular groups. I think the purpose of that initial trip was to fundamentally, I think, to meet the people and understand, how it all worked in North America, and what it was like. And I think for us in particular, we're dealing with mainly two things. We're dealing with our beautiful dogs and beautiful people, and we wanted to make sure that the people that we were going to be working with, were very like-minded to us. They certainly had the welfare of the greyhounds at the core of everything they do, and we wanted a like-for-like scenario in particular, as you well know. The logistical exercise of traveling our beautiful greyhounds to North America is somewhat challenging, but it's been very very successful, and so yeah, look, I think that was the initial trip. I've had a few other trips over there naturally in terms of that side of things, which for either various events or building out the programs. And John, I think we were discussing early in the week, there's no substitute for actually getting boots on the ground and actually meeting people and having face to face. And this program's worked extremely well because there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of brilliant partners. We're very blessed that we've met and got to know some beautiful people in North America who, the care and the welfare of our dogs is exceptional. Their ability to find brilliant homes for our dogs along the journey. And I know we'll get into it, and we've been very fortunate, throughout that particular process to meet the likes of Joe and his beautiful family and that Dallas, police community, which is a family in itself. So, we're again, long way to go. We're very pleased in terms of how everything's certainly panned out this year. We're thoroughly looking forward to a really bright 2024 and beyond. And, I think we've said all along, we're not here for a short time. We want to make sure that these particular programs are really sustainable. We want to look after our dogs first and foremost, and our beautiful partners in terms of on the receiving end. And I think when we talk about, what we've piloted with John McQuade and Joe and the DPD. We want to do that really well, because I think fundamentally what we've seen, just in the last sort of 7 or 8 weeks, that beautiful ability of not just our dogs, but any greyhounds, having a wonderful effect on human beings.
Absolutely. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Do you happen, and ask you a perhaps unfair question, do you have at your fingertips the number of Greyhound Racing New South Wales has sent over to date to North America?
Yeah, I do, John. So, from as I said, our first, ironically, our first beautiful greyhounds arrived in LA and down to Arizona with the beautiful Dev Harbin on Australia Day of last year. By the time we get to Australia Day in 2024, so 12 months, the program will, together with our fantastic partners, have rehomed over 500 beautiful retired racing greyhounds in North America.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Now let's talk a little bit about the police program. The origins of that are with the partnership with the Australian National Police. Tell us a little bit about the beginnings of that program.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, again, going back to those beautiful qualities of the greyhounds, Rob McCauley, who everyone's met. I don't think Joe has, but I'm sure you will, Joe, when Rob comes over. I mean, Rob's the CEO of Greyhound Racing New South Wales and Greyhounds Pets. He's a visionary. He certainly likes to look at things in terms of what's possible, and I think from an industry perspective, when it comes to rehoming and also to the ways of or other particular programs with our greyhounds, he's been right on board and pioneered it. That leads me to the fact last year Rob was very keen and got a program set up with the Police Association of New South Wales and the Australian Federal Police back here. And again, you talk about therapy dogs, companion dogs, in training, working with first responders, policemen and women, and into police stations, and that program is going well. And deliberately, and it's a bit like what we're doing in Dallas at the moment. We want to set up the foundations for great success. And I think you might have mentioned, John, Rob and Rob Villa from Greyhounds Australasia and a few members of the police went over to the US in May of this year. They met with Patrick Yose at the Fraternal Order of Police. They signed an MOU to create a similar program in North America to coincide with what we were doing from a rehoming perspective. And out of that, we've been very fortunate, to get in touch with Joe and the DPD, and that was really made possible by the Fraternal Order of Police. Mike Marder at the Dallas Police Association, who was instrumental, the introduction into Joe and Omar in particular. And then I just left the rest up to John McQuade. I just sat back and let him weave his magic, and here we are today.
I had a conversation with the two Robs when they came over, and I had many questions. Who will be the first group? Who will be be the liaison with the police department? What police department will be chosen? How will you choose it? And of course, that was just the beginnings of the program. They didn't really have answers at that point, but obviously, more work was done. Tell us a little bit about how the Dallas Police Department was chosen, and why that particular city and police department was chosen.
Yeah, absolutely, John. I think like all these things, when you make an announcement or it's an idea, as we all know, until you actually put it into practice, it's always very theoretical in terms of that side of things. And I think when we sat back and looked at, how we were going to do this really well, I think we narrowed in and said, well, again, let's get back to, the success of what we've been doing in North America to date. That's been building great relationships, building foundations, and slowly but surely, and making sure that it's that things are successful before we try and branch out. Um, as I said, John and Susie McQuade of GALT have been superb, brilliant people and brilliant partners with us on the rehoming front all year. I've spent countless hours with the McQuades, through that particular time. And it became very clearly evident that with John's background, in particular, not only adoption, and I'm sure he'll talk about it in terms of training service dogs and that wonderful ability to not only train but also to match them with first responders was clearly evident. And we have a great setup in Dallas. So we said, right, okay, well, let's start with Dallas. It's a direct flight route. We've got all the key ingredients in terms of our particular partners, and let's look at how we can actually explore this pilot program. Calls with the Fraternal Order of Police, introduced us to the Dallas Police Association, Mike Marta, who was incredibly enthusiastic about what we wanted to try and do. In turn, put us in touch with Joe and Omar as a starting point, and together with John, we had an initial virtual conversation. However many months it was ago, and then when I was over in the US, in October and early November, we started to get quite serious. We had a lot of meetings with Joe and his team, John and I, and we already had our beautiful dog Aussie over there, with John. And he needed a bit of extra training, but he was a bit green, and it just it coincided with a number of things. John P. It was good timing. We met the right person at the right time. Joe's a previous Greyhound adopter from John and Susie and the crew at GALT. So he was very familiar with the dog and very familiar with the breed. I think the timing in terms of him, but from Kristen and Carmen and the family, they were probably just about ready in terms of from another person or another pet in their particular life. And I think in particular for us, one of the things that really made sense straight away was the fact that the DPD, had set up the wellness unit, which I'm sure Joe will talk about in greater detail. With the idea in mind that how to basically look after the frontline men and women of the Dallas police community. So I think it all sort of dovetailed quite nicely in, and like all these things, you need to be in the right place at the right time, and sort of went from there. And I think I think in particular John. Joe and I were talking in particular about let's not go too hard, too fast. Aussie's undergoing more training. He's a beautiful companion dog. I think from a Dallas police community, majority of the Dallas police community wouldn't be overly au fait with greyhounds. And, so what's transpired in particular in the last sort of 7 or 8 weeks is Joe, with all his terrific work that he does with the DPD, has socialised Aussie with the Dallas police community and others. And if I can simply put it as the fact that the effect is intangible. It's whether it's a laugh, it's a cry, it's a pat, it's a photo, it's a cuddle, that beautiful calming nature. It's just had a wonderful effect. So that's where we are today, and we're looking forward to seeing what's next.
Well, let's bring in that guy who's in the right guy at the right place with the right experience, John McQuade. John is, I believe, co-founder with his wife Susie of Greyhound Adoption League of Texas, who we all know as GALT. John, tell us a little bit about your background in helping to train Greyhounds as service dogs?
I was approached almost 6 years ago by several veterans. Those who don't know, I'm a Vietnam combat Marine Corps veteran myself, and I have probably experienced PTSD over the years. And these gentlemen said, "Would you like to join this group and help us put it together? We're going to train dogs from shelters and for combat veterans who are disabled or injured and or have PTSD." And one of them was a fairly accomplished trainer himself, and I apprenticed with him for several years, and we produced about 30 dogs from PTSD service dogs. And there's a difference between the service dog and the companion animal in training. But all the way through a stability dog for a fellow that lost his leg with an IED in Afghanistan. And we trained a Great Dane for him, and other mixes from the shelters, and several of them became medical assist dogs and medical alert dogs. And so I got the entire gamut of training over a 2-year period. And I continue to do that on an as-need basis until we started training greyhounds. I've never trained a greyhound to be a service dog. I've taught obedience now and then when we have a dog that needed additional care, because we here at GALT have taken a lot of stray ex-racers that have gotten out and about and become semi-feral, and we have to re-socialize them. So that is my extent. But I'm finding that the PTSD training that I have done in the past translates very well to greyhounds, and I am delighted that the greyhound, I have found out, and I think it's because of its genetic makeup and its evolution over the millennia to become a favorite companion animal, is well suited to become PTSD service and emotional support dogs. A chance comment at lunch one day over a barbecue with the two Robs and Russ. They were quizzing me, I think, to make certain that GALT would be a good rehoming source for them and that we could be trusted. And we love the hounds, and asking my background. And I happened just to make a comment that I spent some time doing service dog training. And I think that the light bulb went out and helped decide that Dallas could be, perhaps thanks to Russ, pushing that idea, could be an excellent place to launch the North American program. And Rob actually did the majority of the groundwork with the first responding groups. I offered to do so, but it was several weeks later he called and said he's made these contacts and that he would run with the program and see what would happen. And he made comments to several people that made other comments, and the Dallas Police Department was discovered with the wellness unit, in which Joe helps operate on an excellent basis.
In the pilot program, how are the greyhounds classified in terms of, we hear about service dogs, we hear about pet therapy dogs, we hear about emotional support. How would you classify the role the greyhounds or the job the greyhounds are doing in this pilot program? Which of those do they fit into one of those niches?
Well, they can fit in both. It depends on the length and the depth of the training. And currently, Aussie is being trained to be a hybrid of these two. He has an amazing personality. He was well chosen for this role. We did not know that. Aussie was had a an injury during transport on a turnout from the Las Vegas program to Dallas, where a muzzle came off another gray, and the gray nailed him, and so he had to be rehabbed a bit, and so his training became a bit eroded. However, he picked it up very quickly, and the dog, thanks to Joe's reinforcement of the training. In fact, we had a training session today. Now, Aussie was quite tired because he spent the entire day, I think, or the greater part of the day with Dallas SWAT, right? Right, Joe?
Yep.
And he was pretty fatigued when I got there for the training session. But so we had a light day today, and I was rewarded by these wonderful kisses. He seems to he likes everyone, but he took a shine to me today because I obviously smelled or tasted delicious, or that I might be delicious. So he's a hybrid because a service dog is really for the exclusive use of the adopter handler. It's not a pet. He's a working dog, and he has various skills and tasks to perform. The emotional support dog is a dog that is going to be more accessible by the handler and the handler's family, and will be a semi-pet, such as Aussie's being, as he's been chosen to be an ambassador dog for the program, and he's doing, as I say, a wonderful job of that. So the dog is a hybrid, but he's learning the skills of a PTSD service dog. However, he will be allowed to be handled and petted and cuddled by Joe's family members, and also, of course, all his colleagues at his office and Dallas Police Headquarters, apparently, because he goes everywhere, and everyone hugs him. So he will be that kind of a hybrid, but he will not be what one would. He'll be more of a support dog than a service dog, who would have to be isolated and not petted. He's the typical dog you see: do not pet me, service dog, that sort of thing, and not to be approached. And the service dog also is trained to recognize when the handler is under stress, is having an anxiety attack. The dog will automatically block people approaching without aggression towards those people, but will just do a blocking front and rear. And it's not allowed to take any treats or any other kinds of favors from third parties. That's the service dog. And the support dog is what Joe and Aussie is, and I are creating. Yeah.
And this is a good time to bring in Officer Joe King, who is the pilot police officer that the first hybrid support Greyhound from Australia lives with. Joe, welcome.
Thank you, John. And I want to thank the Greyhound Nation for allowing me their stage tonight.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about your first years as a police officer, what you originally did, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the formation of the wellness unit and how you came to be in that.
Well, I grew up in Dallas. I always wanted to be a Dallas officer, and I graduated the academy in '97. And I go out to the Southeast Division, which is known as one of the rougher parts of Dallas. And I quickly gravitated to enforcing street-level narcotic sales, gang members, guns, fugitives, you name it, the proactive style of work. And I did that from '97 till I left the streets in 2016. And it was many traumatic events, critical incidents, seeing friends die, friends get injured, many arrests. I had surgeries for my injuries, and then finally, I guess, semi-retired in 2016, October 2016, and I took a desk job.
And tell us about the formation of the wellness unit, when that was done, whose idea that was, and how you were recruited into that.
So we have, in my opinion, because I've worked for 7 chiefs in my career, we have the best police chief in Eddie Garcia in the United States. He had a vision. He saw something going on with his department, whether it was officers getting in trouble for DWIs, behavior issues, and he had Chief Ramirez take a temperature of the department and see what's going on with us. What can we do? At that time, we had nothing other than peer support, and peer support models traditionally are outdated. They are training people up and sit on the sidelines and wait for somebody to come up if they come up to them in crisis. Uh, Chief Ramirez did a bunch of focus groups. I had worked with him on a previous project that was unrelated to wellness, and he knew that of my work on with the Assist the Officer Foundation because we have a confidential counseling program that's long standing, and that allows police and fire. We pay for first responders confidential counseling, and that had been in place for years. So he knew I had a background in it, and also he trusts me with projects, and I knew this was going to be a big undertaking, and and I love my Chiefs, and I thought I would jump in and do what they needed to do to get this going.
How many officers are man the wellness unit?
We have 5 officers: myself, Demarcus Black, David Massey, Sasha Kim, Nicole Glass, Sergeant Omar Figueroa, and our Lieutenant Lisette Rivera. And then we report directly to Chief Eddie Garcia.
And then is it more of a circuit riding job, so to speak, or do you man an office? Tell us a little bit how the officers operate as far as their day-to-day activities.
So day to day, we all have different tasks, but we all have the same goal in helping our men and women whatever they may need, whether it's alcohol rehab, helping them into alcohol rehab, which we have a brand new policy that has gone very well. Reaching out to officers that are having issues at home, marriage, with their kids, or just suffering from PTSD from a traumatic incident. That's pretty much my day and week every day, and we have a nice, beautiful office in Dallas headquarters. That's Russ and John both have been there. It takes up a good portion of the first floor. We're lucky to have that space, and it also has a beautiful conference room if we need to have officers in there to talk one on one, which we do every day, and for various reasons and issues. And it's a great setup. It's something I didn't. I'm a big believer in. It, I see and help so many people now, and I see my teammates help so many people, and I see people reaching out to us before we even have a chance to reach out to them, and I wonder where they went before this unit was created. And I just kind of go back to you build it, they will come, from the great Field
Yeah.
of Dreams movie. But it's been that it's really changed the culture of in the Dallas Police Department for breaking stigmas and whatever other saying you want to say. It's okay to not be okay, but we have no problem getting business coming to our door.
Now, John McQuade mentioned that you were a previous adopter from GALT. Tell us a little bit about your first Greyhound.
Well, I was at a Dallas Stars game here in Dallas, and I saw these odd-looking, unique animals, dogs walking around with a group. I was like, "Those are pretty cool." I've never seen a Greyhound, a person. The only time I've seen a Greyhound was on the side of a bus. So I started striking up a conversation with them, and long story short, I got me a Greyhound. His name was Achilles. He was a beautiful uh, red and black stripe, like a tiger print, brindle, and I had him for 7 years before he got cancer and he passed away.
Did you do any volunteer work with GALT after you adopted him, Achilles, or were you primarily a pet adopter, and that was the role you chose to play?
I was primarily a pet adopter.
Yeah. Now then, who was the first person to contact you about the possibility of your having the first Australian Greyhound as part of the pilot program? Who did you hear from first?
Heard from Mike Mata. He's our Dallas Police Association president and longtime friend of mine. I've known him since he was he's known me since he was a rookie. He was only a few classes ahead of me. And he reaches out and says, "Hey, we want to." There's a group that reached out from Australia, and they want to try to utilize greyhounds as PTSD service dogs. And I thought, wow, I've never considered a greyhound as a service dog of any kind. I said, but they are very sweet, they're very docile and kind and gentle. It's not a bad idea. So we set up a conference call with I believe it was Steve Austin, Russ, and Mike Mata, myself, and Sergeant Figueroa, and there was another, I believe, an FOP representative there, and we had a good hour-long
Yep, sure.
conversation about this program, and it just sounded like we had a lot of bricks, but we didn't have the structure built yet at that point. And I was thinking, as this sounds like a really good idea, we're like, well, who's going to start it? Who's going to be the first person to do it? And we didn't have that answer yet.
You weren't the natural, having been a Greyhound owner before, that somebody said, "Wait a minute, I remember Joe had a Greyhound at one time. How about it, Joe?"
I don't think they realized that at first. Mike knew because he had met my Greyhound, and I had talked to my sergeant after the meeting. The only reason I think that I was invited was by chance because I'm involved with the wellness unit, and I happen to be friends with Mike Mata. And he said, "Well, the wellness unit, it's if somebody is wanting to have a tool or a program that's PTSD related, who better than the wellness unit to be leading the charge on that?" And it just so happens on that meeting, I believe that meeting 2 weeks prior to that meeting, my family, we lost our family pet. It was a German Shepherd. She passed away suddenly, and we were like, okay, well, we're probably gonna be a while before we have another pet and another dog and animal, and we're gonna just take a break. And then this opportunity came up, and I talked to my sergeant about having a Greyhound before, and he's like, why don't you do it? And I went, I don't know. I got to talk to Kristen. I got to talk to, I have to put some thought into it.
What was the family? What was the consensus in the family once you presented it to them?
Well, my wife, Kristen, she's a child abuse detective, and she was just kind of blown away, just kind of like I was, the way if the meeting had happened a month earlier, I wouldn't even considered it. I would have helped in any way to get it rolling. But as far as me being a first recipient of a Greyhound, it wouldn't even been a question. But she was she was very receptive, and we talked about pros and cons. I left my 9-year-old daughter out of it because I knew what the answer was going to be if I brought it up to her. She would want the dog that night. But
Yeah.
so we talked about it, and we said, okay, well, let's see what happens. And I was thinking maybe there was going to be months that a month's gap before any movement on this happened, and it was a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Russ doesn't let any moss grow under him once you give him the green light on something, I'll tell you. And Russ, in
Yeah.
that regard, was Aussie chosen before he left Australia or after he got to Texas?
No, he was chosen. John McQuade mentioned before, the FOP, or Fraternal Order of Police, had their biennial expo, and they had it up in Las Vegas. As part of that, we took over a few Greyhounds, Aussie being one of them, to showcase it at that particular expo to socialise, the pilot program. or the program, at that particular expo. From there, in terms of Vegas, Aussie travelled down to the care of John and Susie McQuade down at GALT. He'd lapsed a bit in terms of training, and from that particular point, but he was with a fantastic foster family who not only really looked after him, but they were very good in terms of not necessarily specific training, but certainly from an obedience perspective. And John Parker, just going back to Joe, I'm not sure Joe actually remembers this, but as soon as I heard, and I think it might have been a sort of not even a throwaway comment, but Joe mentioned on one of these particular calls, oh yeah, I'm a former Greyhound adopter with the guys at GALT, and he probably couldn't see me, but my eyes actually did light up pretty quickly, and I thought, Joe, Greyhounds Wellness Unit, Dallas, obviously with the McQuades, and and the DPD. I think there's a really great opportunity to pilot the program, and as they say, strike while the iron's hot, and not necessarily in a bad way. I think it was perfect timing. We were over in Dallas. We had a couple of meetings, and with Joe and his team, and we were very fortunate to meet Chief Ramirez and Chief Garcia at the same time. And I think after about the second meeting, we walked in, and we still didn't have Aussie with us. We were just, John and I were, coming in and explaining the program, and you could see the look of disappointment at, not that they didn't like us, but, by that stage, I think it was like, come on, fellas, let's talk about the dog and Aussie. And, and once Aussie came into the mix, well, it's been terrific ever since. So, back to what, John McQuade said, we always talked about the fact that, and in particular this pilot program, one dog's not going to fit all, one size doesn't fit all. We are very cognizant, whether it's from a trauma perspective or a companion animal or a therapy dog and or a pet. We want to make sure that we tailor this particular program to be incredibly personal. Hence the reason why, the McQuades and the setup at GALT, once the dogs, graduate from our particular program, we'll be going straight into Dallas, whereby there's on the ground, matching and training and, and ongoing from there. But, we're pretty excited. And I think just adding to that, the one probably key takeout that I had, and certainly we had collectively, Joe and his team, and certainly all, from the top down or the bottom up, there was a genuine sense that there was a wonderful caring element of the Dallas police community. They looked out for each other. They wanted to do good things. They wanted to look out for people. And I don't know, they just, every time you walked into that, to the DPD headquarters, you just, I don't know, you felt pretty good. It was a good vibe. It's good people. And so to be perfectly honest, we couldn't be more delighted, to pilot this program, in particular Dallas, and long may it continue and certainly grow, with our friends in Dallas.
Yeah. Joe mentioned a fellow named Steve Austin. Probably
Yes.
not a name familiar to most Americans, but he's pretty preeminent in Australia. Tell us a little bit about Steve Austin and his role in the police program.
Yes, absolutely. So when Rob McCauley, our CEO, announced all of the programs with first responders and from a police perspective, Rob is all about getting, the best possible people into the mix at every element of the environment, and in particular when it comes to training. And Steve Austin's a gentleman back here. He is a very well-known animal trainer, but in particular, from a dog's perspective, he runs some very successful programs, community defence, inmates. He's worked a lot in terms of from a services and veterans perspective back here. Steve Austin came on board this year as the head of canine training, as we call it, with Greyhounds Pets New South Wales, and probably a two-pronged role. Steve is doing a train the trainer approach to make sure that all our people that working in and around greyhounds as pets and from a rehoming perspective, are trained and educated in terms of at whatever particular level with our particular dogs, but specifically for our police programs. Very intensive 8-week program over here, and upon graduation, a selection of dogs will then, depending on the requirements, will then travel to Dallas, reside with our friends at GALT. They'll be matched accordingly with either police office or potentially from a substation perspective, and then that on the ground training will continue. But he's a good operator, Steve. He's like majority of us down here, a bit knockabout, but in a really good way. And he loves his dogs. And I think what John McQuade said earlier on, he hadn't had a lot to do with greyhounds up until probably the last 12 months. And I think, very early days, he soon realised that, all those beautiful qualities that we've often talked about with greyhounds can make wonderful assistance dogs, companion dogs, and potentially some of them, in particular, that specific PTSD.
John McQuade, what you mentioned that Aussie needed a little more, shall we say, polishing work once he was, under the care of GALT. What specifically did you do with Aussie to kind of give him that finishing work?
Well, it's actually ongoing. We started about a month ago. Now, Aussie will require probably another 2 months of work. No, it won't be a daily basis, but over a 2-month period. About 60 hours of training, and 30 hours of it needs to be out in the public, though Joe is handling that very well. We'll have to do some work in public, in shopping areas and restaurants and such to make certain that he minds his manners and does all the appropriate things and that he's supposed to do. Actually, the training that he received was fairly preliminary. It was a good start. Steve Austin shared, and I asked for his manual so that we would use the same vocabulary for commands and cues, so that he would not have to learn other terms because we would have used different terms for the same task. But he shared that with us, and so we will continue whatever they do in Australia. And I've made 2 suggestions about 2 additional tasks that needed to be included that I hope they will do some preliminary work on. And we're actually working in conjunction now to make that program a little more complete, so that we can continue it, and the dogs can either be the emotional support or they can be service dogs more readily. Aussie is, since he was injured, he lost a lot of time. We lost about 6 weeks with him. He was injured. I had surgery myself. Gosh, I hate getting old. But that's, we both had body parts to heal, and we have both healed up at the same time. Joe met Aussie, and it was actually love at first sight, Joe.
Yeah, now Joe, that's you've anticipated my next question. Joe, tell us about that first meeting with Aussie. What was the setting? Who was present? Just give us a sense of what that was like.
Well, I have to go back to what Russ talked about earlier, that we were a little disappointed to see only Russ and John walking in the doors at DPD from the long hallway, and there was no dog walking with them. But we endured and we waited patiently. But the first time that we knew that they were actually bringing Aussie over, the entire wellness unit was there. and I had my wife, the child abuse detective, she came over, and I wanted her to meet Aussie just the first time that I met him, and yeah, it was pretty majestic, just the way he interacted with everybody. And I think we left the wellness unit and went up to talk to Chief Ramirez, and he got he got mobbed just going from the first floor to the sixth floor where all the chiefs are by people wanting to stop and talk to him. And I believe that was the trip that Chief Garcia actually come out and pose for a picture with him as well.
Now, is he one of these tail wagging, never met a stranger type greyhounds?
He doesn't wag his tail a lot. Occasionally though, when he goes to work with me, he wears a vest, and it's a tactical like vest, and it's got patches on it. And it seems when I put the vest on, he knows it's work mode. So he is with me, and he's around everybody, and of course everybody wants to pet him and love on him and hug him. And he calmly goes up to him, and he'll smell him, and he'll do the greyhound hug, or he'll smell their face and give a couple licks. But it's there's no he's not hyper. He is very gentle and calm, and everybody is kind of
Yeah.
shocked of how cool hand he is.
Now, I believe he's there in the room with you. Why don't you introduce him to us?
Yeah, I'll see. I'll see. Come, come. I'll see. Come, come. I'll see. I'll see.
Do we see?
Need a treat.
All right.
There he is.
Ah, there he is. Hey, buddy. Oh,
He works for food.
Yeah, he does work for food. I know the feeling. I'll see.
So he likes his crate, it looks like.
Yeah, honestly, the only reason he's probably in that crate right now is because I'm sitting over at the dining table and the crate is by it. Otherwise, he would be laying on the big bed in the living room floor.
Tell us a little bit about
But he likes
Aussie's
to be by
day-to-day
me.
work. What's a typical? Yeah. Well, that's great. What's his typical day now? Tell us about the work
Well,
you do, the day-to-day work you do with him.
well, he comes we get to the office in the morning about 7 or 8, and he I do my busy work, my computer work early on, and then he lays there. There's a bed right next in my desk area that he lays on the floor, and then we start making rounds around headquarters. We go from the family violence unit to homicide to sex assault unit, and we just make our rounds as the detectives show up. And then it's funny to see how I go from unit to unit, and I interact with detectives who see some of the worst crimes Dallas has to offer, and they light up when they see this dog. They just stop what they're doing, and they come flocking to him to get hugs and love on him. And there's brings a lot of smiles, and it's really nice to see. And I do see the disappointment that I experience with Russ and John if I'm walking around the halls by myself, and they look disappointed. Where's Aussie? And I'm like, he's back at the office sleeping. But we also I load him up in my car, and we go out to the divisions. We have 7 divisions in Dallas. The Dallas PD and the city of Dallas is very large, and we have different groups of officers that work patrol at all these 7 divisions, and they work different hours. So we routinely go out to these divisions to meet with the officers at the detail. It's like in the movies. There's a bunch of officers and their supervisors. They do a roll call, and I go out and I kind of talk about the program, the Aussie Mates in the States, and what we're doing and what Aussie's about. And after the detail, he gets swarmed like a rock star. I mean, it literally happened. I took him to Dallas SWAT unit today, and the same thing. Then right after that, I took him over to the central detail, and he got mobbed again. I always get photos and videos of it, and because it's a really sweet experience. And there are times that I get requests for him to come to a unit because of a critical incident, and that happened actually last week after a horrific crime that happened here.
Yeah, I've read studies that, and this is dogs in general, not just greyhounds, but that they'll introduce a dog to a person, take his blood pressure before and after, and he's got lower blood pressure after he's interacted with the dog. And I'm sure in your work you can actually almost see that.
Oh yeah, I see the looks on their faces go from whether it's beaten down with the cumulative effect of PTSD and the trauma that we see, or just the experiences that they have to deal with daily, or the crimes they have to investigate, which are we see the worst part of humanity. But when I walk up with that dog, they have a momentary break, and it's a positive and it's a happy experience, and I see it every day.
Now, when Aussie comes home, tell us about his family, his life there with your family. What his typical evenings are. I suppose he comes home reasonably tired from his work, his job all day, and he's ready to hit the big bed on the floor and so forth. But tell us about his routine when he's not working.
Well, when he's not working, we like on the weekends, we get up and we take him out. We do a few we do like at least 2 walks a day with him, long walks, and then a lot of it's just relaxing because the weeks are very busy. When you factor in the ride to work and ride home from work in Dallas traffic, and then the busy work that he has throughout the day, because there are people. If I'm not taking Aussie to a unit or around headquarters, they are coming to our office to see him. And then there's other events. Like last Saturday, I had to go to an event. It was my off day, but I had to go out for 4 hours to our largest airport here in Dallas, DFW. And there was the Gary Sinise Foundation was in town, and they were doing a program for families of fallen first responders. And they had all these kids and all these families there. One of the chiefs requested that I bring Aussie out to meet these families and to be there for support. And he was a hit. He was a hit in the entire airport. Everybody was coming up and what is he? What kind of dog is that? And I had to explain the whole program to him. Like it was on repeat. It was like that movie Groundhog Day. It seemed like once I was done explaining what I was doing, somebody else was walking up. But he got a lot of love from these families, from these kids, especially that experience loss, and from their a parent that had been killed in the line of duty. And it's like
Yeah,
special events on top of the normal job. It's pretty tiring for him.
yeah, I can imagine. It strikes me that this program is not only great for the police officers that it serves, but it's good for the breed. I mean, the exposure you're giving to the greyhound breed to people that, as you've pointed out, haven't had much experience with greyhounds. Kind of think all the myths are true. They're nervous. They're highly excitable. They require lots of exercise, etc. You're probably planting a few seeds of possible future adopters. Do you get many inquiries about how do you get a dog like this, or hey, I want a dog like this? What do you hear from people along those lines?
I do. I actually have a few detectives that are inquiring about it, as well as a sergeant that's at one of the divisions, and then on top of it, we have outside police agencies that have reached out to me after there was a couple of local news stories here, and they've reached out inquiring about this program. Like, hey, what are y'all doing there? How can I get one of these dogs? And we're going to be meeting with them next week. Yeah, next week, and discussing what this is about. And one of the other PDs, North Richland Hills PD, it's a suburb of Dallas. They reached out, and just so happened the captain that reached out is also a was a previous Greyhound owner as well. So she's very familiar with her, and her husband are very familiar with the breed.
Yeah, that's great, John McQuade. As these folks get interested in adoption, do you have a few greyhounds there around GALT that you could help them out with?
Oh, absolutely. We will be doing pet adoptions with the Australian hounds also. Not every dog that is chosen will succeed, and when that happens, they will be transferred back. They'll be transferred to our pet adoption program, and some lucky adopter is going to have a well-behaved, well-trained pet that won't, when you drop the lead, won't run away. If you open the front door, won't run out the door and get hurt. That sort of thing. Oh yeah. It will enhance. It will enhance pet adoption too.
Where do you go from here, John? What will be the next step? As the pilot program progresses, will there be another hybrid Greyhound there for somebody else in the Dallas Police Department, or will you go to more of the outlying counties? What's kind of the next? What do you see in your crystal ball as the next step?
Was that for me, John?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Four dogs are coming in January. Out of 8, 4 will be pets. 4 will have had the preliminary training. Well, actually, the training will be fairly well advanced based on what I'm hearing, and those 4 dogs will be available at least to become the hybrid dog for the police stations if they wish, or they will be given advanced training to become PTSD service dogs that are individually trained. When I mean individually trained, not they will be trained to adapt to a particular individual that may be in severe crisis and would benefit from the dog that has the advanced tasks and who is suffering from more severe PTSD. I think I won some confidence with Joe and Joe's unit because I had to make a presentation. They asked me questions about the training and such, and I told them my background, and I think they have confidence that I can approach their colleagues with sensitivity and confidentiality. And because though I'm not was never a police officer, in fact, I used to be, as you know, a trial attorney and defense bar, and I was a public defender, and but I think my combat experience can relate somewhat to the urban combat so many officers have experienced day to day, and having to be hyper vigilant in all the other kinds of pressures that they're under. And so I think, and working with Joe, and he and I will actually, I think we'll be making a lot of, when a candidate's chosen, we will do the interviews together, and we'll talk about the animal and or whatever, if it's a police station or force that we can place a dog properly, because he's now learning about the training, and because I want him there because he is there and he's helped reinforcing the training, so he can actually explain the difference between the dogs and how the dogs can function, so he can sell the program himself. The 4 dogs are the next phase, January 15th, or it's the 19th, so sorry. And we will immediately take up the training and finish up their support training and start introducing some advanced skills for those animals also until these dogs are placed. So I don't know where they're going to go. Joe's going to probably help me figure that one out.
Yeah.
We're contacting him.
Joe, in Greyhound adoption, we have a saying that you can't. Greyhounds are like potato chips. You can't just stop with one. Do you see a second Greyhound in your future? Not necessarily as a support or therapy dog, but just a buddy there for Aussie and another pet for your family.
Well, the way my life has gone, I wouldn't rule anything out. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be in a unit called the wellness unit, and if you'd have told me even further that I would have another Greyhound that's a PTSD dog just 2 months ago, I'd have said you're crazy. But I'm not going to rule it out. I'm enjoying Aussie's companionship, his partnership, and it's my job on the Dallas Police Department. So I'm not there to put people in jail anymore. I did enough of that. My job is to help my peers in any way that I can, and having, it's like having a tool belt, it's having a gun belt with all these different weapons on it. Aussie is a tool for the department, and it's also he's my partner to go out and help other people, and that's what my mission is, and that's what I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, you have every greyhound lover's dream job. You go to work with your dog, and what you get to do all day is just get completely and always reinforced with what great dogs they are, the what they do for people in their lives, the effect they have on people. I mean, and you get paid for the pleasure. You can't do any better than that.
No, I can't. I'm not complaining at all about my job, and just being able to show off the pure beauty inside and out of a greyhound, and also spit out historical factoids on greyhound that surprises a lot of people, because a lot of questions come with the greyhound breed itself, and I've studied up enough on them to be able to sound half intelligent on it, but I can definitely attest to the loving, caring nature because I see it every day.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, this is a great program. We in the Greyhound breed appreciate what you're doing because what a win-win. It helps the dog, it helps the people, it helps the dogs, it helps spread the word about the Greyhound breed, it helps with Greyhound adoption. There's just no downside to any of this.
I don't see any. I mean, I really don't. And I'm honored to be the pilot program for the Dallas Police Department, because I this city and this department has given me a lot, and having Aussie here to give back to this city and to the my peers, it's I'm getting more out of it, just as much out of this program as Aussie's given the department.
Yeah, as I mentioned at the opening of the show, greyhounds have served humans in multiple functions for centuries. This is just the latest iteration of how they serve mankind, and you can't do any better than that. So it's just a great thing that everybody's come up with as a team, the concept and so forth. And I think it's only going to be successful as you go forward.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to get the word out, and showcase this greyhound and this great program to make that happen.
And as I understand it, Aussie won one race in his career.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I haven't seen. There's a video of it somewhere. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to.
Russell
Yeah,
Russell get that. Russell get that for you.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe. Very remiss on my correspondence there. Yeah, John P. 1 win out of 29. Um, I think from memory, up in Grafton, 2021. He got up a win. I think he had a couple of third places. But yeah, he was right. I think he's enjoying his retirement. I mean, the irony of it is we sort of talk about retired racing greyhounds. I mean, in Aussie's case, he's sort of he raced, he retired. Now he's sort of come out of retirement. Now he's back to full-time work with Joe and the DPD. So he'll probably be in tune for a testimonial at some particular point in time.
Yeah, he's like Michael Corleone. He says they just drugged me back in. What was for our purists among our listeners and viewers, Russ, who may want to look up Aussie on Greyhound data? What was his registered name?
Yeah, from the ashes.
From the ashes. That's great. And
yes.
Then what was his call name before he became Aussie?
Yeah, well, it was actually, I don't really like to talk about that, John, because everyone thinks that we're just, doing a bit of hyperbole around the name Aussie, which, of course, as you well know, is not the case. And Austin, but but the thing is John McQuade and I, we walked into the headquarters of the Dallas Police Department, and we're talking about Austin. I thought, well, that's not really going to work. I mean, we're in Dallas, and beautiful Aussie, aka Austin, hails from up at the central coast of New South Wales. Beautiful coastal town called Foster up here, which is plenty of sun, plenty of surf, really good greyhound community, both from a rehoming perspective and trainers and participants. And on that note, I think it's actually not that this discussion is necessarily about from a rehoming perspective, but as you can see there, yes, the training that Steve Austin and his team at Greyhounds as Pets have done, which is fantastic. The ongoing training that John and his team are doing with Joe and Joe's family. I think a shout out to the New South Wales trainers and owners and participants in terms of actually how they look after these beautiful dogs when they're racing and certainly upon retirement, because again, we started this conversation by talking about foundations to success, and without that foundation in terms of not only looking after the dog really well, but also to pet prep training, it either take a lot longer or certainly wouldn't be as acclimatized. So yeah, he's a pretty good rooster. And just quickly back to John McQuade said we had a catch up with the guys yesterday. We know there's plenty of interest in terms of with Joe and the Dallas police community about individual Aussie Mark IIs and certainly substations. And I think like all these things, we're going to do it well. We're going to take it slowly. We will make sure it's the right fit. We've got some good guardrails around the program, particularly with John and Susie and the GALT crew. And I think our ambitions really is to make this work really well. I mean, and actually from here on in, I'm going to take the word pilot out, because it's pilot no more. It's it started, it's working. We're going to grow it, and we'll see where we go from here.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, it's been a wonderful conversation. I think we'll want to have you back in about a year, kind of a Where Are We Now themed show, because I'm sure that, as John will have trained the PTSD, the active, assigned to a police officer to help him or her with that, and we'll be well down the road at that point in terms of numbers, the folks that have been helped, and Joe can give us an update on Aussie. We'll check in and see how he's doing. So, fellas, we'll have you back in about a year, and we'll just see where things stand. Thanks so much for spending some of your time, your evening with us. Joe, good luck to you and Aussie, and you're just going to make a great deal of difference in a great number of officers' lives, and it's a wonderful thing. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Greyhound Nation.
Thanks so much for listening to the show. If you're not a regular listener, be sure to follow Greyhound Nation wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Grey Nation Show, follow us, and you'll get notifications every time we release a new episode. You can also get new show notifications when you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like the episode, leave us a review on our Facebook page or your favorite podcast app. You can also send us feedback or questions via the contact form on our website at greyhoundnation.dog. That's greyhoundnation.dog. This episode was produced in collaboration with host John Parker. Our theme music was composed and performed by Dimitri Taras. Thanks to our guests this episode, Russ Feilen of Greyhound Racing New South Wales, Joe King of the Dallas Police Department, and John McQuade of the Greyhound Adoption League of Texas, aka GALT. Check out our show notes for news coverage of Aussie's introduction to the Dallas Police Department. I'm Michael Burns, and you've been listening to Greyhound Nation.